Hello and welcome to your next assignment for Exploring Digital Media. This week, the assignment is Journey. So we dove into the world of video in our last lecture, and so now it's your turn to turn your camera over to video mode and start recording some frames. There are a few things you want to keep in mind. If you recall that as far as exposure goes, you have less control over your shutter speed, or if you change your shutter speed, it's going to look a whole lot different. And for someone starting out, Ian, what are the kind of optimal settings to start with for a cinematic look?
So I think you're going to want to shoot at 24 frames per second. So most of your cameras should allow you to do that. And if there's some variation in your hardware, maybe get as close to that as you can. And then you're going to want to shoot at 1/48 of a second. So for most cameras that shoot video, the shutter speed will be 1/2 of the frame rate. So at 24 frames per second, that's 1/48 of a second shutter speed. So if you're shooting at a sort of slightly different frame rate, trying to get as close to 1/48 as you can will be the best. So just remember those 1/24 and 1/48, which is just a doubling.
Yeah, exactly. And some cameras can't do 1/48, so get as close as you can. 1/50 is pretty common as far as shutter speed as well.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a look at this assignment. So here we have assignment 7, and what you're going to do in this assignment is pick a subject. It can be human, it can be an object, but whatever it is, it's going to take a journey from point A to point B, and those 2 points are up to you. We want you to kind of transport this object where we can see it move across the screen, move across a space, and get to its destination. So first thing to do is kind of come up with the motivation for the trip. Is it someone who's lazy and getting to the fridge, and that's going to be an epic journey for them? And if you want to build up this kind of epic trip, what kind of visual representation are you going to give the shots? Are they going to be kind of low angle, empowering shots? Are they going to be have a color cast to them? Like, we want to tap into all of our compositional and color and exposure settings that we've kind of come up with to define what these shots might look like.
And think about framing size too. If you have, remember the shot from Interstellar where the people were very sort of small and it was really expansive, and part of that was the camera movement around it to show the context. But you can have a very tight shot and then reveal something later. You can sort of the aspect of having time allows you to sort of change the order and reveal things through time, but you also have a chance to play with size and context, proximity to objects and things like that. So you can diminish people by making them very small in the frame, you can make them really large in the frame, you can use compositional elements like shooting low or shooting high. So all of the things that we've talked about photographically wrap up into video. It's just now you can do something over time, right? So you can start somewhere and end somewhere different, which is really the sort of crux of it.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to give thought as to how you might move your camera. Do you have access to a tripod? Are you going to do it handheld? What does the actual camera movement look like if you have any? If you do it all statically, where your camera and your frame don't move at all, how do you kind of progress the action forward? So
right, and keep that interest and variation, right? So maybe you're changing shot sizes a lot if you're not moving your camera as much.
Yeah. And if you're diving in for the first time into video with us, don't worry. We don't expect a huge number of shots. We want you to have this trip of your object be between 10 seconds and 1 minute for the final product. So it's totally fine to keep it short. We want to see at least 3 different shots edited together. So it's not like we need a huge amount of shots, but certainly if you want to kind of build this epic journey up and have a lot of shots to kind of communicate that is fine too.
Yep.
So there's no limit on the number of shots, but certainly keep it within reason. Let's see, what else do we have here? So your story itself should be clear what's happening, right? It's okay if you want to break the laws of physics or if you want to have a non-linear story, but keep in mind it's a very short video and whatever you do should make sense. So I would say, unless you have a grand idea, keep it simple and don't worry about trying to make it all about the story, right? We want to see.
Right. I think sort of getting consistent screen direction. So if someone is moving this direction, in the next shot they're still moving this direction, unless there's some reason for them to have changed direction.
Yeah.
Trying to build up the conceptual space where you're editing these shots together, and sort of the geography of the situation begins to make conceptual sense to a viewer, and it's not just sort of randomly strung together shots that sort of lack cohesion.
Yeah, like starting to really think about the sequencing, kind of like you did in the last photo essay assignment, right? We thought about your shot order, like what do you want to start with a wide shot and kind of work your way into the sequence? Right. Do you want to start really close to the object to establish it and then come out to its environment with a wide shot? Do you want to have one shot that does both, where you start close and then dolly out to reveal a wider thing?
And then where do you go from there, right? Like how is the rhythm of the sequence of shots created?
Yeah. keep in mind the 20% or 30% rule. Like you don't want to cut from one shot to another shot that's pretty much the same shot size and same angle. You want to kind of keep variation between shots as you sequence them together as well. So all of those kind of things come into play here. Let's look at our checklist down here. So as we said, a minimum of 3 shots edited together. We want you to manually set your shutter speed and your aperture. And again, if you're not sure what you should do, start with 24 frames per second and then setting your shutter speed at 1/48 or 1/50. And then the aperture obviously controls our depth of field, so we want you to make that decision as well. If you want to also control your ISO manually, you are welcome to, but if you also want to put it in automatic aperture mode, we totally accept that. Just know that your trade-off might be, if you're shooting in the dark, we'll have lots of camera noise, but we've looked at that in depth at this point.
Automatic ISO mode.
Automatic ISO mode, sorry, I said the wrong thing. All right, the final video should be edited down to between 10 seconds and 1 minute. There's no requirement for titles or any kind of audio at all. We just want to have an entirely visual story. Audio is certainly welcome, but it should just make sense to the viewer. It should not be confusing who the subject is or what the subject is and where it's going from and to. That should be pretty clear. So no requirement of sound, but feel free to include some if you want to. We've covered how to drop sound clips into Shotcut, and if you're comfortable in different editing software, that is totally fine as well. So each shot should enhance your story, right? We're not just looking for 3 random shots that are kind of slammed together. As we've said, give some thought to it. Good continuity and preservation of screen direction, I think is a good place to start as well. And per usual, we're going to have you upload this to YouTube and then import it into Opinion City so that we can give you feedback in Opinion City. And we've done that before, so this hopefully isn't new. There are links up here at the top of the page for actually submitting, and this is due on Monday, April 1st. Any closing remarks, Ian?
No, I think just sort of begin to think about how you can use your starting and your endpoints differently. Think about the progression and the sequencing of shots. So taking this photo essay assignment that you were given and maybe pushing it to the next level with delta time. Otherwise, we really look forward to seeing what you guys produce, and we'll see you next week.
Good luck.